Hi everyone, it's Ellen March with Sulky, and this is So What, our Facebook Live series. Thank you for joining us today. If you are joining, be sure to comment, like, share this post because we have another great giveaway. So be sure and comment, let me know where you're from. I love hearing from you guys. And I have so many things to talk about. It is Taco Tuesday. Taco Tuesday. And Cinco de Mayo, all in one. How exciting. I love a good taco and I love a good taco design because tacos are the perfect food. I also love me a margarita. So if you are off work or not working right now, grab yourself a margarita, grab yourself some chips and salsa, and we are going to have a great time this afternoon going through some fun projects that have a little bit of a Taco Tuesday theme, if you will. But you can also change the designs around and make them for just about any holiday. And you know, Mother's Day is coming up, people. I have to continually remind my husband, but Mother's Day is coming up. And you might be a mother yourself. You might, well, you for sure have a mother. And maybe, you know, your sister, niece, somebody like that deserves a handmade present. Am I right? Mother's Day is the perfect time to create something with fabric, to create something homemade with our hands that just gives it a little bit extra love. So I'll be going over some of those things too. Lots of comments coming in already. I love it. Yay, Taco Tuesday. Yes, love it. Okay, so let's get started with let's call it a Cinco de Mayo pot holder, if you will. Now, pot holders, relatively easy to make. And also, you get to kind of practice your quilting techniques. If you're not a quilter, you probably need to have some techniques for adding binding to projects, whether or not that's a quilt. Things like pot holders, things like the upper edge of a bag. Even some garments have bound edges. So with this really simple pot holder project, you can kind of practice those techniques in a very, very small format. So what I like, first of all, about this project, I'll show it to you here. How cute, right? Every now and then I fall apart. I found this design on Apex Embroidery. It is the cutest, right? I just fell in love with it. So I thought it would be the great little focal point for this pot holder. Now, the idea is that it's in the shape of an avocado because avocado is like one of my favorite things, and who doesn't love a good guacamole spread on Taco Tuesday? But then I noticed it kind of looks like an Easter egg. So use it for Easter. Put an Easter design on there. Use it for Mother's Day. Put a monogram on there. Put a cute floral design on there. Whatever you want. So the thing about this is it has two little pockets for your hands to go in. And I got the idea for this because my daughter actually is really into baking, and she has this little mini pot holder where she can get her thumb in there and get things out of the oven. So I just opened it up. See, there's our avocado / egg shape. I just opened it up and added some easy pockets, and there you have your pot holder. So on the Sulky blog, we have the full instructions for making this pot holder, also linked in the description of this post, so easy reference there. The full instructions are there, but I'm going to go over them with you here on the live video, and there's a downloadable pattern for this. Now, you might be able to just freehand this, but hey, why not download a pattern and you can have your egg shape super easy and just print it out. You can also see that my design is going to be touching my hot food when I take it out of the oven because of how this folds, how your hand fits into it. If you do not want your embroidery touching your hot food, you can always put your embroidery design on the front of one of the pockets, and that way it will never be touching hot food out of the oven. So that is up to you. Hindsight, after I did it, I was like, maybe should have put that on a pocket, but it looks really cute when it's hanging, so whatever. All right, so first things first, there is a layer of insulated batting inside of here. And I wish I would have taken a picture of it before I used it because it was the only scrap of insulated batting that I had left in my stash. Insulated batting has little pieces of insulated kind of like wiry stuff in it. Comment if you know more than I do about it. You probably do. And it makes it so it's heat resistant. So I have the insulated batting layer next to the fabric that's going to touch the hot food in the oven. And that's just extra security that you won't get burnt when you're taking your food out of the oven. I have a layer of insulated batting and then a layer of cotton batting behind that. And then the pockets are also lined with the cotton batting. So there are a lot of layers that you're sewing through here, and I'll show you how to kind of tame them and make them easier to sew. So first and foremost, you're going to do your, let's see if I can find it. You're going to do your embroidery first, okay? So let me pull this up here. Now, I designed this so that, well, first of all, I designed the size based on the piece of insulated batting that I had. It also fits on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, so you can print it out really easily. You don't have to tape things together to make something bigger. It's all on one piece of paper. I also designed it, well, happy accident, it fit a layer cake square of fabric. Now, if you're not a quilter, a layer cake square, let me put it over here, is a 10-inch piece of fabric, a 10-inch square. And I just happened to have some leftover from a different project that I was using. So happy accident, I had about a 10-inch square of insulated batting. I had some leftover layer cake squares that were coordinating. So that's the size of the pot holder. Now, in order to fit the egg shape, do you see how I've done the embroidery on point? That means corner to corner is in the hoop. I didn't do it straight like this because then when you go to cut out your egg, you don't have quite enough fabric for the shape. You could probably squeeze it in there and have really smaller seam allowances than a 1/4 inch, but I suggest just doing it on point if you only have a 10-inch square of fabric. Obviously, if you have a bigger piece of fabric, and who doesn't, you can certainly not do it on point, especially if the fabric print really matters as far as what's going up and down on the print. So that is your fabric requirements, pretty much. You're going to hoop it. Now, usually with a lightweight quilting cotton like this, you can use a number of different stabilizers for great embroidery. For this one though, I used the Totally Stable, Sulky Totally Stable. Now, as you can see, this is an iron-on tearaway stabilizer. Did you know that you could have both things with your stabilizer? It can be fusible, yet tear away. Now, the thing you really, really need to be cognizant of is how hot your iron is, okay? If you fuse this to the back of your fabric with a super hot screaming iron, which I know we all like to keep our irons screaming hot, at least I do, you will have trouble tearing it away. You really need to be careful and use a medium heat setting, medium to low, just so that it adheres to the fabric, just to be on the safe side. Also, it can't hurt to just cut a little square of this, fuse it with different temperatures onto some scrap fabric that is the same weight that you will be using, and then try to peel it off. And that way you know absolutely what's going to work for your project. Now also, for this pot holder, you could really leave the stabilizer intact if you wanted to after your embroidery is complete. And I actually did that because I wanted it to hang really nicely for photography, honestly. But you can see when I go to use it, I have to kind of push it in because that stabilizer's in there, keeping it stable. So I did test though to make sure that I would be able to tear it away after embroidery. So you definitely want to do that just so you get a feel, honestly, for how the stabilizer reacts for you. So you will hoop this guy on point as I'm showing here. And then, of course, stitch out your embroidery design. Now, you will also then cut all of your pieces out. Like I said, I have a layer of insulated batting. I have a layer of cotton batting. You can see my pocket pieces are cut out. They've got a front fabric and a back fabric, which I just called the lining fabric. And you can switch these up. They don't have to match. It's a cute pot holder. They could just be coordinating fabrics. You could put a different fabric on the front than on the back. You could piece together fabrics and have a patchworky type back where I put that design, and then put your design on one of the pockets. I mean, you could do any number of things, of course. So once you have all of your pieces cut, then you will move to binding and finishing the outside edges. Now, I was talking about how do you contain all these fabric layers and what is going to make it easy to bind this whole thing together, because you've got your pockets now lined up on all those layers of batting and your front fabric and your lining fabric, So, as you can see in this picture, I serged the edges of everything before I added the binding. I serged all the edges of the pockets, and let me just tell you, keeping these together, you want to use the Sulky KK2000. Let's see, my head is blocking it. This is the KK2000. I've got two different sizes of it here, a big can, a small can, and I have lots of cans because I go through it a lot. I love the stuff. I use it for so many things. The KK2000 is a temporary spray adhesive. It's the most environmentally friendly one that you will find, and it contains a lot more product than the competition. Now, I don't exactly know why that is, but there's just a lot less air in the can. So when you get your can and you're like, why is it so small compared to other ones that I've used? That's why. It has less air in it. It actually has a lot of product. At any rate, use your KK2000 and layer up all those layers, or adhere all those layers before you go serging the edges. Now, if you don't have a serger, just zigzag the edges all together, or you can just simply baste them inside of your seam allowance, and that is fine too. So you don't necessarily have to use a serger. However, it does make the edge nice and flat, and everything works together beautifully and nothing shifts. All right, so once you have done that and you bind the upper edges of your pockets, place them where they need to go, then it's just a matter of adding your little hanging loop and binding the whole thing. If I can show you. Here I am like halfway, or I've added a little hanging loop with just some extra little pre-made bias binding, again, from my stash. And you could see the binding going around. Now, also notice I've left long tails of binding at the beginning and at the end so that I can join them together seamlessly. You can see I have my little join seam. Where is it? Where is it, everyone? It's pretty good when you can't find it. There it is. Okay, so you want to make sure that you match those up. Leave yourself some room beyond where they meet up, so you can move that part away, sew the binding together, snip off the edges, and then fit it around. And then it's just a matter of wrapping your binding around to the back, and then you can hand sew it, you can machine sew it, stitch in the ditch. That's what I did. So there we have it. And I apologize, my eyesight is not showing me these pictures as well as I would like. All right, so I'll just show you, of course, the finished product again. So make your little avocado pot holder. Let me know how it turns out. I'm going to see if I've got any questions regarding the project before I move to the next one. And I will mention that our giveaway today is going to be some stabilizers. I've been giving away a lot of thread lately. I thought it was time to give away some stabilizers. So I'll be giving away a pack of the Totally Stable that I just talked about. I will also be giving away a pack of the Tear Easy, another one of my favorite stabilizers, because you can use it with so many different types of fabric and it tears away completely cleanly from the wrong side of your embroidery. You can also use it for projects that have nothing to do with embroidery, and I'm about to tell you all about one of those. And I used Tear Easy as a great solution to a problem I was having while I was sewing. So I'll go over that in just a minute after I have a chance to see if we've got any questions. Oh, love my necklace. I should show you guys. Thank you so much for bringing it up. So it's a little sewing machine. Isn't that cute? Speaking of Mother's Day, this would make a great gift in and of itself. These are at sulky.com. You can grab one of these necklaces, add it to your cart with your purchase. And what a great Mother's Day gift that would be. I'd be super happy to receive that. All right, so let's see if we have any other questions here. You agree, embroidery on the pocket. You know, hindsight is 20/20. And yes, thank you, Eileen. The insulated batting is called insulate. Insulate, or I've also heard thinsulate, maybe. So yeah, let me know what you guys have been up to, what you've been sewing during this time of social distancing, I like to call it. It's great to hear that sewing machines are flying off of the shelves. I don't know if you guys have been able to get to a fabric store or maybe a big box store that normally sells sewing machines, but I myself have not been out of the house in quite some time, but I've heard no sewing machines are on the shelves. No fabric is on the shelves. No notions. And while this isn't the greatest news for those of us looking for those things, it's a great, great thing for our industry. And I'm so excited to hear that so many people are starting to sew, learning to sew. You know, they picked up a sewing machine because they wanted to sew face masks. And I really, really hope that y'all stick with it. And, you know, we've got tons of inspiration. If you want to send any beginners our way, you know, like and share the post, like I said, for your chance to win your stabilizers, but also just to share the love, share your love of sewing. So, all right, it doesn't look like we have any particular questions about the embroidery or the potholder project. It is relatively simple to make, as you all can see. And again, great project for beginners or to teach somebody to sew. You know, pass along the free pattern for the potholder and hopefully it inspires somebody. So, oh, okay. Share again the place where I got the embroidery design. Yes, it is in the blog post that I linked to in the description of this episode, but it is called Apex Embroidery and super cute. Every now and then I fall apart. Love it. Okay, so enjoying Taco Tuesday. I can't wait. I'm going to be making some tacos. I'm going to be, using my cute and festive pot holder. Love a Taco Tuesday. All right. Janine is saying she was in a store today and they only had one sewing machine. Normally they have about 20. Yeah, elastic. Really, really hard to find right now. I'm sure you have all already made your masks because this is a wonderful sewing community who gets on the cause rather quickly. But if you do know of people who are still sewing masks, or if you're looking for more resources for mask sewing or donations, we have set up a Facebook group called Sew Masks with Sulky, and you can join that group. It's a great community of sewists who are working to make sure that our first responders are getting the PPE that they need, or at the very least, some fabric masks to help that PPE go farther. So you can join Sew Masks with Sulky and join our great community there as well. So, all right, I just wanted to make sure I answered any questions. Okay, so someone's asking, does rayon or polyester thread do better with heat? That is a great, great question. And one that I wish I could answer right this moment. And I believe polyester thread is your answer there. I used Polydeco with my project. I always use Polydeco when I think something is going to undergo more of the elements. So if it's something that I'm putting on a beach towel that I know is going to be out in the sun, or something like this, I always go to Polydeco rather than rayon. It's just kind of ingrained in my brain, but I will do some more research and answer your comment there as soon as I can. And okay. So, sorry, I'm getting questions all over the place. Apparently there is some confusion about the embroidery design versus the pattern for the pot holder. The embroidery design has nothing to do with the pattern. The pattern piece for this egg shape and the pockets is the freebie. This design is by a totally different company, Apex Embroidery. I believe it's $1.99 on their site, so it's still rather inexpensive as far as embroidery designs go, but this is not a Sulky design. This is an Apex Embroidery design. So if you are looking for that, that is not free and that is not sponsored or anything by Sulky. It just happens to be what I used. The pattern is for just the pieces to make the pot holder. So if you have more questions, let me know. Someone's asking what size hoop I used. So for this, I used a 120 by 120 hoop. And that was actually a little bit bigger for what the design called for. However, I wanted to make sure that all of my fabric was getting in the hoop. And also, that's the smallest hoop that I have for my Designer Epic 2 machine that I use. So I went with the smallest hoop that I had and just changed the hoop size on my machine for the design. All right. Oh, someone has made 97 face masks. 97 face masks. Yes. That's awesome. Congratulations. Okay. Now, before I move on for the next project. Oh, yes. And people are saying cotton thread, if it goes in the microwave. Thank you so much for that information. Sulky has a 30-weight cotton thread, a 12-weight cotton thread, and a 50-weight cotton thread. For something like this, if you wanted to go with cotton, I would use the 50-weight cotton and steel thread, because if you go any thicker, like with a 30-weight, it's not digitized for 30-weight thread. So I would go with a thinner thread rather than a thicker thread, if you're going to change thread weights on a design, just to make sure that your thread isn't going to break on you or bunch up on you, create knots and terrible things. Embroidery designs are typically, unless noted otherwise, digitized for standard 40 weight threads. So any deviation from that when you're stitching out a design is going to either need software so that you can adjust the stitch density of your design, or go with a lighter weight thread and it's not going to have as much coverage, but you're going to get pretty close. All right, so, 130 face masks. Applause, applause. Very good. Oh, we got 210. 210. Oh, that is awesome. All right, and now you're on to fun sewing. I like it. I like it. After 210 masks, you got to make something for yourself. You have to make something that is fun. You know, get out of the assembly line sewing for a little while at least. All right, so my next project is a great project, honestly, for any time of year. I just thought it would make a really great quick Mother's Day gift, or gift for yourself, really. Now, I'm calling it a makeup brush roll-up because you would put your brushes in here and then roll it up, okay? And then put your little tie around it and tie it in a cute little bow. Now, obviously, you don't have to put makeup brushes in here, okay? You can put paint brushes. You can put sewing notions. You can put any number of things in this little pouch. You could put markers or colored pencils and gift it to a kid or an artist. Really, it doesn't have to be makeup brushes. That's just what I store in mine. And for that reason, I have lined the inside with a piece of vinyl. That is to make it so that you can just wipe it clean when the debris from your makeup, or even art supplies, when your debris gets on here, you can easily wipe it off. Of course, I forgot to put my phone on silent. Apologies. All right, so when you are sewing with vinyl, some sticky things can happen. And I don't know how many of you out there have ever tried sewing with vinyl or laminated cotton. That would be a great choice for the lining of this. Hopefully my voicemail picks up soon. But at any rate, it likes to stick to your presser foot while you're sewing, and it makes it difficult to have a straight, smooth seam. So what I discovered was if you put a little strip of Tear Easy stabilizer that I talked about earlier along your seam when you're sewing, your presser foot glides over the stabilizer rather than over the vinyl. And then you can just tear it away gently away from your seam and no one ever knows it was there. So I will show you a little photo of this. Now, I used a serger to put this together because honestly, I will use my serger whenever possible. And I had my embroidery machine set up for embroidery. So I just went over to the serger to do some quick seaming of this little pouch. You can certainly use a traditional sewing machine, but the same kind of tips apply for sewing with vinyl. So you can see I cut a little strip of the Tear Easy, put it along where I was going to sew that seam, and it sewed perfectly. Then I could just tear it away when I was finished, and it was a beautiful thing. Now, under all the serger seam, the serger threads, I just left the stabilizer intact right there because it doesn't do anything to the hand or the flexibility of my finished project. But if you are just going with a traditional straight seam at a 1/4 inch or a scant 1/4 inch or whatever seam allowance you want to use, you can tear it away cleanly and it will come away from both sides. All right, so someone is asking, what about a Teflon foot? If you happen to have a Teflon foot, by all means, install that and you're good to go. I did not have one, so I was trying to come up with other solutions, and I happened to have the Tear Easy, and I went for it. I also will use Tear Easy when I am stabilizing knit seams. I will put that right on to my fabric. I will even sandwich it sometimes, run it through, and then tear it away after. It's a beautiful thing. So that is my tip of the day, I guess. Tear easy on those seams that are sticky for you. You could also try, oh goodness, what is it called? Sewer's Aid. You could try putting a little bit of Sewer's Aid on the bottom of your presser foot if you happen to have that. Sewer's Aid is like a lubricant for needles, and it really, really helps when you're working with metallic thread as well. It's available at sulky.com. It's super affordable. And if you put a little tiny bit of Sewer's Aid on the bottom of your presser foot when you're sewing, that will help also. But I found the Tear Easy trick was honestly the best method for me. All right, so, and there you can see it tears cleanly from the edge of the stitching. And like I said, I just left it underneath those serger loops. But again, if you're doing a straight stitch, it'll come off of both sides for you. Okay, so after you have serged those edges, and the full tutorial for this is linked in this post, so I won't go through every single thing for you. You can definitely just go to the blog post and you'll get all the dimensions and all the supply list and everything that you need for the project. I happen to have some grosgrain ribbon in my stash that matched the cute little lemon print fabric. And so you will fold that in half, put it where indicated by the instructions. And as you can see, I have this little quilting clip that I used to clip the ribbon in place, because since you have that layer of vinyl, if you go ahead and use a pin, it's going to leave a permanent hole in the vinyl. And if your pin isn't exactly along the seam allowance and it gets onto the main project, you've kind of destroyed the whole reason that you put the vinyl there, because all of a sudden you're going to have this hole where your makeup debris or art debris can get in and you'll never get it out. So instead of using pins, use these great little quilt clips. I love these guys. So that's what that little guy is right there. Then you'll create your stitched lines to hold your brushes. Now, if you're making this to hold colored pencils, let's say, or sewing notions, vary the widths of your little pockets. That is totally up to you. Now, I went from a 1/2 inch anywhere to 1.5 inches, making sure that my very last one that I was marking had enough room. You don't want to leave like a 1/4 inch along the end. Nothing will fit in there really. So you can vary your pockets however you want, however wide you want them to be. And then you'll just stitch down those lines and you're complete. You are done. Now you could add embroidery to the top of this as well if you want, to your little flap. You could add a cute little embroidery design so that when you fold it over, you can see it. So make sure you're orienting your design in the right way so that when it flips down, it's facing up. Yes. And then you just roll it up like I showed you before and tie a cute little bow. It makes just the greatest gift idea for anyone on your list at any time of year. I just think it's one of the great things to gift to your mom for Mother's Day. And like I said, add to the gift. Put a set of makeup brushes in there. Put a set of really nice art pencils in there, you know, put a set of sewing notions, you know, chalk pens and little snips, and, you know, make it a little sewing gift for a sewing friend. I mean, it's just super cute. I travel with mine all the time. I use it all the time. And I think you guys will really love. I mean, first off, you're making this out of a fat quarter. And you certainly do not have to add the vinyl layer to yours, because you can just throw it in the washing machine and it will get clean. I just find that with a lot of makeups and things like that, it can get a little, you know, gunky and it doesn't wash off as well. And so I tried the vinyl. I also have one made out of laminated cotton. If you happen to have that, I didn't have any in my stash, so I made it this way. But certainly you don't have to have that layer if you don't have it in your stash and you can't find a place open right now. So definitely go for that. So I'm just going to check and see if we have any questions regarding the vinyl or the projects that I have done so far. So love the lemons. I know, isn't that a cute fabric? I had that in my stash for forever and never really knew what to do with it because I only had a fat quarter of it. So this is a great fat quarter project. You're going to use the whole fat quarter for it, and front and back. And I just thought it was so cute, and it went with the ribbon that I had in my stash. So love that. Okay, so let's move forward. Went to the email to get this pouch project, but the link takes me to the taco pot holder. Oh, okay. So if you're looking for the makeup brush roll-up, the link for that is in the description of the post for today's video. So the link should be right up there, as well as in the comments. And if you're having trouble finding that, we will comment to you directly and make sure that you can get it. You can also just go to blog.sulky.com and search for makeup roll-up or makeup brush, and it will come up for you. So yeah. Oh, thanks, Paula. Love your great vinyl tips. Thank you so much. Yeah, if you guys have any more tips to share about using the vinyl, let me know. I did hear in the past of people using baby powder on the bottom of their presser foot when sewing vinyl and sticky things. And it's really just not something I want to recommend, because I want to make sure that the baby powder isn't getting into the mechanics of your machine. Now, if you have a really light touch and you just want to dust it and make sure that you brush it off, I mean, you can try that if you would like. I am not going to promote that. Maybe some of you have tried that before and can chime in and let us know how that works for you, but I just am not a fan of putting anything on my presser foot that might get into my machine, baby powder or not. So I've also heard putting clear tape, just removable tape on the bottom of your presser foot and kind of cutting it to the exact size. I've heard that that can help glide over sticky things like vinyl or vinyl coated fabric, laminated fabric, and the like. So you do what works for you, try some things out, but quite honestly, Tear Easy worked for me every single time. So without having to do a bunch of trial and error, without having to sacrifice the health of your sewing machine, Tear Easy it is. And again, for those of you just joining us, our giveaway today is a pack of Totally Stable and a pack of Tear Easy, so that you can use these to experiment with your projects, to and hey, stabilizer isn't just for machine embroidery, everybody. You can use these to help in your quilting and sewing and craft projects. Stabilizer does just wonders for helping our sewing stay straight, helping our fabric glide under the presser foot, make sure that we don't have puckers and tucks where we don't want them. So definitely try these guys out. And giveaway today for those of you who like, share, comment on the post, you are automatically entered, not really. You're automatically eligible to win this gifty for today. So, all right, let's see if we have any other comments. Was the vinyl fusible? Okay, great question. My vinyl was not fusible. However, the fusible vinyl that is out there is awesome. I love it. It is way more heat resistant than a traditional vinyl would be. And this vinyl that I used was actually left over from a project that I did for making a luggage tag. All right. Now, good thing to note, once it's on here, you can't iron it. I tried using a press cloth, actually right here, this pressing sheet. It's a June Taylor pressing sheet available at sulky.com. I put that over the top of the vinyl and I tried pressing it on a very, very low iron. Now you can see it's pretty wrinkly. It didn't do a great job. I made sure that my fabric was crisp, ironed crisply and nicely before I applied it, because I knew once it was applied, I was not going to be able to iron it with my hot iron like I like to do. So keep that in mind. Do not touch your hot iron directly to it, or there goes your project. And there goes your iron. You're going to have to be cleaning your iron after that. So nobody wants that job. Let's be real. So yeah, fusible vinyl, I have used it before. Again, I did not have any in my stash, but if you happen to have some or you can get some relatively easily, this is a great place to use it. The fusible vinyl, and you know what? It acts like a little bit more of a stabilizer as well while you're sewing. But again, still sticky. So you're still going to want that tear easy along those seams. All right. Where to find fusible vinyl? I think there's only a couple of companies who make it, and it's probably on Amazon with everything else in the universe. I would just Google it. You'll definitely be able to find it. All right. Yes, it will melt. All right. I love this comment. Learning the ins and outs of stabilizer because I'm new at embroidery. Yes, it takes practice. Now, if you are new to embroidery, I highly suggest grabbing up a Sulky stabilizer sampler. The sampler has an 8.5 by 11 sheet of the Sulky stabilizer line. Some of the stabilizers are slightly smaller than that. However, you will be able to test out all the different stabilizers and see how they react to different fabrics that you're going to be embroidering on. You can even use that stabilizer set, the sampler set, to create a little notebook for yourself. Grab up some of those sheet protectors and put your sample stitch outs in there. And then when you're going to your next project, you can say to yourself, what did I use with that quilting cotton? What did I use with that stretchy knit? And you'll have a reference for yourself so you can go back and know what worked and what didn't. It has saved me a number of times, and I highly recommend it to anyone who is starting embroidery, or quite frankly, to anyone who is still doing embroidery and can't remember what they used the last time that it worked well. So stabilizer, sampler, set. Grab one of those while you're at it. All right. Let's see if we have any other questions that we need to address. Does Sulky sell it? Sulky does not sell fusible vinyl yet, unfortunately. But yes, it would be fantastic. And I've been talking about the laminated cotton fabric. Have you guys sewn with this before? Laminated cotton, this is the perfect place for it. People use it in lunch bags, things like that. I've seen it used for raincoats, but this would be a perfect project for a little swatch, a little fat quarters worth of laminated cotton, if you're able to have that, or if you have some in your stash. All right, just bought some slimlines, love them. Do y'all know what the slimlines are? Slimlines are containers full of thread. Oh, love it. I want to get to a point where I can hang mine up on a wall. I have them in a giant stack here next to me, but it's a great way to, first off, buy a whole collection. Let's say, for those of you new to embroidery, and you want to make sure that you have all the colors that you need. There's nothing worse than buying an embroidery design that has 14 thread colors and you realize you only have 3. Well, we have some Embroiderer's Dream slimlines that contain almost the whole line. I mean, if you get enough of them, you can get the whole line. But it's so great to have all the different shades, and we've got some starter sets and then some dream sets as well. So those are great. All right. Stabilizer is perfect for newbies. Yes, you can test different ones. And like I said, stabilizer is not just for machine embroidery. So if you think to yourself, oh, I don't do that, my machine doesn't have those capabilities. If you're a garment sewer, if you make quilts, if you work with tricky fabrics of any kind, anything that's not a stable, medium weight cotton, then try stabilizer out the next time you do your project. And you will see, not only does it make you sew better, more accurately, sew quicker, get done with your stitches a lot faster because they aren't bunching up on you at the beginning and end of a seam or stretching out of place, or when you're sewing a knit, you're not getting those wavy hemlines and things like that. Stabilizer, I'm telling you, you'll love it. All right. So, love the notebook idea. Yes, making a stitch sampler notebook is just, it's a beautiful thing. I highly, highly recommend. Do I need a special needle to sew vinyl, and does it stretch? Now, this is going to depend on sort of the gauge of your vinyl that you've purchased. And quite honestly, I'm sorry to say I don't remember the gauge of vinyl that I used, but it's in the blog post along with the full instructions for this project. And it didn't stretch at all. It definitely did not stretch while sewing. And the only issues I had with it were the sticking. The other thing that you can do is, well, the other thing you want to do is make sure that you're sewing with the vinyl facing your presser foot rather than the bed of your machine. If the vinyl is facing the bed of your machine, it has a much larger area to stick to, and it will be even more difficult. When you're sewing with the vinyl facing up, you can put that little strip of Tear Easy. You don't need a whole sheet of it to cover all that vinyl. You can use just a little strip, and your presser, make sure it's wide enough that your presser foot is going along the Tear Easy and not hitting any of the vinyl, and you'll be fine. And do we need a special needle for vinyl? So I did not adjust my needle for the vinyl. I use organ needles. You can see them all displayed right here on my little pegboards. And the needle that I used is specified in the blog post, and I want to say it was a 7511. And the reason I used that is because I used 50 weight thread, the cotton and steel thread by Sulky. That is what I used for this. It's a little bit finer of a thread than a 40 weight because the higher the thread weight, the skinnier it is, right? So a 50 weight thread is going to be thinner than a 40 weight, 30 weight, 12 weight is going to be super thick, right? So I used a 7511 universal needle for the 50 weight thread. I can also get away with an 80-12 needle using that thread, but I like to use kind of the smallest eye needle that is suitable for that thread. There's just less give or less of an opening for that thread to kind of flop around in. When you're using the 7511, the thread fits quite nicely. A little trick I like to do when I'm pairing needles and thread, let me see if I can find a needle, is I will take the thread that I am using, if I can pull some off here, and before I even install the needle into the machine, I will thread it. And I'll see, is my thread going to go into the hole without a lot of friction? And then I run the thread across the needle. Now, this thread is a 30 weight. It's too thick for the needle eye. I can't even thread it. So I'd much rather do this when the needle's off the machine than try to see, in my little area that I have available to me, and swap out needles and try again. I would rather do it off the machine than on. So let me see if I can grab a spool of thread that will fit this needle. I've got my 40 weight poly deco. And this is an 80-12 universal needle that I just happen to have here. So now I will thread my needle while it is off the machine. Another thing I do is I pass my needle back and forth along my thread strand. Now, this is passing quite simply, no problems. I know that my thread is going to go in this needle and not have any sort of extra friction that I don't want. Now, if you had threaded this and it's not moving nicely and smoothly, then you need to go up on your needle size. You need a larger needle. And if it is going too quickly, then perhaps try a smaller needle. I just love that little trick. It makes it so much easier rather than trying to test it on your actual machine while it's sewing. That's my little needle tip. I learned that from the great Sue Hausman. She came on an episode of Sew It All TV when I was the host of that show, and the tip has stayed with me forever. Sue Hausman is a great educator for sulky and just full of tips. Love that woman. All right. Do I recommend universal needles over embroidery needles? No, I do not. It depends on what I'm sewing though. So this had no embroidery. So I used a universal needle. It went through the vinyl just fine. I didn't need an extra sharp tip or anything, and I did a little test before I sewed it. Also on my serger, it went through just fine. So I used a universal needle. Now for this project, for the pot holder we started with, I used an embroidery needle for the embroidery. Then I switched to a universal needle when I was doing the binding. And that's also because I just wasn't doing embroidery anymore, and I was going through lots and lots of layers to do this binding, and so I swapped my needle out. I probably could have gotten away with using my embroidery needle for the rest of the project, but I just saved those for embroidery. And embroidery needles aren't necessarily for all embroidery either. Sometimes you need a top stitch needle. For example, embroidering with metallic thread. I would use a metal needle or I would use a top stitch needle. I would not use a universal needle for any embroidery. I hope that answers your question. Okay. I just want to make sure that we're answering all the questions today because I forgot to answer questions last week. We had so much to go over. Are your threads numbered? Meaning if I need another spool, do I need to get that same number? Yes, they are. So the threads are numbered by type as well as by color. And you want to make sure that you're getting the right type that you want as well as the right color. So this is a spool of sulky 40 weight rayon. It is numbered down here. 942 is the type of thread and 1045 is the color of thread. So on the Sulky website, you will see them referred to as 942, 1046. Now, if you're using a different type of thread, for example, a 12 weight thread, that's going to be 712. I don't expect you to remember any of these numbers at all. But when you are getting replacements, make sure that you have the right type as well as the right color number. And that way you know you're going to get the rayon. I mean, it's going to be labeled rayon anyways, but just for your reference, that's what those numbers mean. Okay. Are all organ needles titanium coated? I believe only the titanium needles are titanium coated. So if you are looking for titanium needles, you need to make sure on the Sulky site that you have selected the titanium needle. Otherwise, you will not be getting that. All right. Let's see any other needle questions that we have. All right, I don't think so. All right, well, I hope you all have enjoyed our 2 little projects we had today and that they gave you some great ideas for Mother's Day gift ideas or just great ideas for Taco Tuesday in general. I hope you all enjoy your chips, salsa, tacos, guacamole, margaritas, whatever floats your boat. If you are looking for some more fun projects for your social distancing, be sure to visit our Sewing at Home with Sulky link. I put it in the description of today's post. Sewing at Home with Sulky is going to give you a ton of resources for more fun, free projects you can do during this time of isolation and social distancing and all that good stuff. And I'm super happy that you've joined me today. Make sure to sign up for the Sulky newsletter for even more great projects and inspiration. And again, our giveaway today, one of you who likes, shares, otherwise comments on this post will be getting a pack of Tear Easy and a pack of Totally Stable that we talked about today. And good luck to you all out there. And I'll see you next week on So What with Sulky.